Part 40. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 409. After a while, the person who returned to the restaurant was not Ling and Guan Yanjian who had left not long ago, but Wei 11 who had just returned from bathing. Hey, where's Sister Ling? Didn't you see them in the hallway back here? They. Wei 11 shook her head in confusion. If you didn't see it, then they should be in their room. The light flame sword is also on the aviation magic ship now. Hey, Wei 11 was so surprised that the comb in her hand fell to the ground. The light flame sword, does it mean she is here like Hitomi? Well, she and Ling should be discussing something in the room now. After all, they have been away for a long enough time. The other party is Ling's magic suit, so he shouldn't do anything excessive to Ling anyway. It's just that Ling, who is usually so strong, feels aggrieved in front of the light flame sword as if he has been caught with something, so this time Ika is worried about Ling. This is Hitomi's Yggdrasil. If something happens, she will definitely be the first to notice. Suddenly, Ika felt someone leaning on her again. Turning his head, he saw that Hitomi had dozed off again with her head resting on her arm. Hitomi seems to be in this dizzy state after eating. Is it okay? Lan Ming looked at Tong, who was sleeping deeply, with some worry. This time she seemed to sleep deeper than last time, and she didn't wake up even if Ika touched her sleeping face. Could it be because Hitomi isn't quite used to the environment of this world yet? Adapt. It's like this, if you don't stay in this world with this kind of body often, you will not be used to the way the body recovers magic power from the air, and there will be situations like Hitomi's lack of energy. Ika suddenly realized that this was probably like human magic depletion syndrome, and Hitomi's spirit would also be affected accordingly. Hitomi has said before that she has never come out of that world. In other words, she is just a little tired now. If she adapts to it in the future, this situation will not happen. I think it should be like this. Since Wei 11 has already said this, there should be no need to worry too much about Tong. In Wei 11's memory, she saw her life in the Principality of Sentia. Wei 11 often interacted with Liu Yin, Duke Sentia, and others in human form. From this point of view, she should be in the magic costume. A senior who appears in human form. Can Hitomi recover just by sleeping like this? Well, as long as Hitomi rests normally with a human body, she can replenish all the magic power in the surrounding air. Just when everyone was relieved about Hitomi's current condition, Ling and Guan Yanjian, who had been away for a long time, came back. Wei 11, who had just met the light flame sword for the first time, quickly straightened her back and said hello to her. Oh, after seeing it with my own eyes in this world, Xuechaoziji is still as cute as before. Guanjun's sword walked up to Wei 11 and touched her head like a warm-hearted big sister. We have you never met directly like this before? Yes, no. Sister Guan has never been to the Principality of Sentia in person. But I often see you there. To be honest, when I first saw you in that border town a year ago, I was really surprised for a long time. It's great that you still remember me. You will not lose to our magic costume at all. Be more confident. When I usually look at you from the Master's spiritual world, I am still a little anxious for you. But now you have grown a lot. Promise, sister, we must keep up our efforts. When she first met Guan Jianjian, she was a little nervous, but after a few brief conversations, Wei 11 gradually let go of her guard against the friendly and smiling Guan Jianjian, and her speech became much smoother than before. Ling, who seemed to have experienced a big battle, sat back down next to Lan Ming with a tired expression. What did you just say? Ika asked Ling in a low voice. You don't have to worry about. He only received such a feeble answer from Ling. The Guanjun sword, who had been chatting happily with Wei 11, left Wei 11 and looked past her at Ika and Ling, who were whispering. To be precise, he looked at Hitomi, who was leaning on Ika and breathing shallowly. Oh, Hitomi looks like she's having a hard time. Way 11 said that as long as she takes a nap, she will feel refreshed. That's true. She must not be used to the outside world. Since you are her master, you must always pay attention to her physical condition. I've had such a plan for a long time. Aika stroked Hitomi's hair gently, and she curled up in Aika's arms seemingly comfortably. Where's Hikari? Have you come out often before? Compared to Hitomi, the number of times should be slightly more. The light flame sword that said this was still full of energy, which was indeed different from the fatigue shown by Hitomi. She walked to the unoccupied side of the dining table alone, held her hakama skirt and sat down on her knees. Every move is like drinking wine and admiring the moon in the water pavilion in the spiritual world, and his movements are full of elegance. Just now you really want to know what the master and I said after communicating for so long, right? She raised her index finger towards Aika and smiled quietly. That's not allowed. It's not allowed to inquire about girls' privacy. As a gentleman does. Probably because Ling noticed the whispers between Aika and her from the state of mind that she was trying to hide, or maybe she caught a glimpse of this side while talking to Way 11. Way 11 still sat next to Aika, looked at Hitomi who was sleeping comfortably on Aika's arm, swallowed, moved her body slightly and sat closer. Her peripheral vision glanced at Aika's free arm from time to time, and she probably simulated doing what Hitomi did countless times in her mind, but her body was as stiff as a rusty machine, unable to make any movements. Then let's stop here today. I'm really happy to meet you all in this posture. Hey, Sister Guang is going back. Way 11 had only seen the light flame sword for a few minutes before she had to go back, and she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Everyone has to rest at this time, right? She smiled slightly at Way 11, I will come tomorrow too, if I won't disturb you. Ling said nothing. Aika thought she would tell the light flame sword not to come out at will, but she didn't say that. Then let's leave it like this for now. I can't let Hitomi fall asleep like this. I'll send her back to her room later. Then see you tomorrow and good night everyone, have a sweet dream, my lord. The tit-for-tat atmosphere between Guan Yanjian and Ling disappeared after 10 minutes of conversation in the boudoir. It was incredible for the girl. Aika was still very concerned about what they talked about. Finally, the light flame sword smiled at Aika, and her figure disappeared with the faint golden light. The light flame sword finally returned. Ling, who seemed to be finally relieved, actually relaxed. Then I'm going to take a shower first. Ling stretched out her arms and stood up slowly, probably because she wanted to wash away with water the fatigue that accumulated in less than an hour and felt like a whole day. Because Way 11 usually goes to bed earlier than others, she was allowed to use the private bathroom on Yutra Hill first. If the rest of Ling and Lanming had entered the bathroom, it would be almost midnight when they should really rest. Way 11, let's go to bed early too. In fact, Aika originally wanted to rest after boarding the ship, because the sudden appearance of Hitomi and the light flame sword made the current time about to enter a new day again. Way 11 stood up from Aika's side, her voice sounded a little disappointed. But when Aika noticed something and turned back to look at her, Way 11 immediately made a smile that was obviously fake. No one knew that the little wish in Way 11's heart was not realized until the end. She thought she should have mustered up the courage by then, but her body just didn't obey her orders. I don't know how many times today I sighed in my heart. In her heart, Way 11 actually envied Hitomi who could rely on Aika very naturally. If it were herself, she would never find any reason to do this like her. If, like Hitomi, I had legitimately signed a magic contract with Aika since he was born, could I still maintain this kind of relationship with him like Hitomi now? Compared to himself and Hitomi, who does Aika need more? Until Hitomi appeared in front of everyone, Way 11 had never considered this issue. Wanting to take Aika as your own is a bit too selfish. It was as if he only considered his own happiness and valued Aika as some kind of object. Way 11 knew in her heart that this kind of thinking was wrong, but she couldn't help thinking in this direction. Having such thoughts, is it a manifestation of what Misty said, pretending to be a good kid? End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 410. Aika held Hitomi and walked towards the other rooms vacated by Yggdrasil. Hitomi's body was just like the one she encountered in the spiritual world that day, with a slightly lower body temperature than her own, and a body as slender as a willow leaf. Her body seemed to be so light that it lost the concept of weight. Aika easily picked her up with both hands. This was probably a little different from girls of the same age. Fortunately, after Hitomi fell into a deep sleep, the aviation magic ship could still sail normally, and Aika did not feel that the connection with Hitomi was broken. Both Ling and Lanming went to the bathroom. Only Wei 11 always followed Aika, as if she wanted to wait for someone who needed help, but didn't say a word. Just use this room. Wei 11, open the door for me. I come. The door to the empty room opened easily, and Aika was worried that all unused rooms would be locked. It's nice that the rooms here aren't all locked just because Hitomi is asleep. Will that happen? After all, Yggdrasil is equivalent to Hitomi's clone. That's what she said before. Do you usually need to sleep in that world? Like now? Well, Hitomi is also maintaining the navigation of this aviation magic ship now. If nothing unexpected happens, you can still use magic to contact us even if you are asleep. However, if something unexpected happens, or Brother Aika, if you forcefully use Hitomi's ability, she will wake up. It seems that from now on I will try to avoid situations that may irritate Hitomi. Entering this empty room, Aika laid Hitomi's body across the bed that had been made from the beginning. Because she moved from the princess hug position to the bed, the close-fitting crimson kimono became slightly messy. Snow-white thighs were exposed under the pink dress. Hitomi, who was still sleeping, seemed to twist her legs uncomfortably. The hem of the kimono spread further to the left and right, revealing more tender skin. Aika quickly looked away. No matter what kind of relationship she has with Hitomi, she is just the same girl as Wei 11 now. She shouldn't want to be seen more by the opposite sex without her knowing, right? Wei 11, can you please help Tong take off these clothes? I'll do it, Brother Aika wants. Then I'll leave it to you. I'll wait for you outside the room. Wei 11 nodded as if understanding, and Aika left the room. The master-slave relationship between the two of them has caused the two to lose their distance from the beginning. In addition to the psychological effect between the two, there is also the possibility that the magic of the contract has brought the two closer. Just like when he signed the contract with Wei 11, he had never been so deeply attracted to her as at that moment before. It was not a distance that could be described in physical terms, but as if his heart was completely open to her and he accepted everything about her. After dinner, when Hitomi leaned on his arm and took a nap, Aika didn't feel any sense of violation at all. It seemed that this approach was taken for granted from the beginning. Even putting aside the master-slave relationship of the magic costume, she still has a special identity as the sister of herself and Lugo. And this special identity has naturally become an inseparable link between Aika and Hitomi. Wei 11 came out of the room, and it seemed that she had already changed clothes for Hitomi. Have you changed it? Woo. Wei 11's hesitant eyes were erratic, standing at the door as if she still couldn't let Aika into the room, and then gently closed the door behind her. Wei 11, what's wrong? You can't go in now. Why? Haven't you changed your clothes yet? It's not that dress can be taken off, but... Woo. The more Aika wanted to know, the more Wei 11 made perfunctory sounds. Hitomi's inside, is not worn. Nothing to wear. Underwear. The confirmation of Wei 11's revelation shocked Aika's worldview. So he was wearing nothing under that elegant crimson kimono? Hitomi's clothes are probably constructed with magic power. Does this mean that she has no intention of wearing underwear, or does it mean that she simply does not know what underwear is? Now what? Ika really didn't know how to avoid this kind of problem. Ling and Lanming would have handled it better, but Wei 11 seemed to be frightened by Tong's gentle side. No, I don't know, so I only took off half of my clothes. There is no doubt that there is no underwear prepared for Hitomi on this aviation magic ship. Girls should only carry their own underwear with them. If they want to lend it out, there is no need to think about it for the time being. If Hitomi was still awake, he might be able to teach her to make a set of underwear for himself, but this path was not feasible now. Tong really likes to leave unexpected surprises for us. Of course, Ika and Wei 11 couldn't just leave Hitomi with her clothes half undressed, but the two people who could ask for help were not around right now. I'll look for it again, maybe there are some that haven't been worn yet. Undecided, Wei 11 hurried back to her room. If that's the case, does she still have new underwear that she bought but hasn't used yet? Ika knew that this was a very important issue for girls and must be taken seriously, so he was ready to wait here for Wei 11 to come back. If Ling and Lanming come back at this time, you can also explain the current situation to them. Less than 10 seconds after Wei 11 left, the door behind Ika quietly opened. Ika took a moment to realize that there was only one person on board this aviation magic ship who could easily use everything here. Attracted by the sound coming from behind, he turned around without thinking much. The crimson kimono with its belt unbuttoned hung loosely around Hitomi's body, and the front of the kimono was open to Ika without any covering. The exposed legs, wearing snow-white foot bags, stepped on the wooden floor of the cabin, forming a strong contrast with the crimson color of the kimono. Hitomi still held the red paper umbrella that was both a weapon and a part of her body in her arms, barely covering her key parts. However, the area that the paper umbrella can cover after being closed is quite limited, and most of the fair skin is still exposed to Ika's sight. The fluffy pink twin ponytails in the past were probably untied by Wei 11, and her long, soft-looking hair was draped over her shoulders. She used her thin white fingers to lift up a strand of her long hair, and the large kimono she casually draped over her body slid off her shoulders, revealing her shoulders as delicate as works of art. And Hitomi, who appeared in such a defenseless posture, had an expectant look in her eyes like an abandoned kitten that had finally found its owner. Dragging her kimono skirt that reached the ground, she approached Ika with seeming eagerness. Hitomi, put on your clothes and come out again. Clothing. It was only then that she looked down at her body. Because she replaced the paper umbrella she was holding with one hand, Ika could see more of her fair skin. Hitomi's face turned almost as crimson as the clothes on her body. It wasn't the color of the clothes that reflected on her face, but the girl's feelings that were revealed inadvertently for the first time. She hugged the paper umbrella to her chest again, and her shoulders seemed to shrink. Instead of putting on the scattered clothes again, I tried to cover them up with paper umbrellas that had no covering effect, which of course didn't help. Of course, Hitomi may not have noticed this, but after doing so, she raised her face that was similar in color to the open kimono. Master, are you excited? No. It seemed very rude to her to leave decisively in front of her, but it was probably even more rude to stare closely at her skin, so Ika just stood there and looked away. However, the body followed the instinct deep in the heart, and naturally watched Hitomi's every move through the corner of the eye. Hitomi tilted her head incomprehensibly. I don't know if she was dissatisfied with Ika's answer. She moved the umbrella handle slightly, inadvertently exposing more skin. At this time, Ika's body naturally reacted. Male instinct is so pathetic. Rather than face such a dangerous face-to-face confrontation, Ika made up her mind to help Hitomi put on her clothes herself. Stand still. After telling Hitomi, I don't know if she understands what she wants to do. Ika had just turned around, and she actually made the paper umbrella that could barely cover a thin line disappear without any warning. The naked jade body is displayed in Aika's eyes, which can naturally be regarded as the fourth impact on male willpower. But the battle-hardened Aika still insisted on not surrendering to the ignorant and terrifying girl in front of her. The high-end design can be felt visually, and the design is also very complex. Hitomi's kimono is somewhat similar to Anili's kimono on the surface, but what is displayed in front of everyone is more reserved than gorgeous, which also has a sense of beauty that complements Hitomi's temperament. I don't know how to wear this kind of clothes. To wear this type of clothes, you still need to organize them first. Aika carefully pulled up the clothes on Hitomi and compared them left and right. Although both what should be seen and what should not be seen came into view during this process, but now it can only be attributed to force majeure. When Aika pulled up her clothes, Hitomi seemed to instinctively reach out to stop her. But that might not be what he meant. In the end, he just held the corner of his clothes slightly and followed Aika's movements without making any resistance. This was probably the first time in Aika's life that she had seen a girl's defenseless body at such a close range that she could count on her fingers. Suddenly, a choking sound came from the side of the two people who were so surprised that they could not speak. Aika turned around to look, and not far away was Ling's shocked and angry eyes. Lan Ming covered his mouth with his hands as if he couldn't accept the sight in front of him. Then, with the sound of a door closing on the other side, there was the sound of something falling to the ground. Aika turned her stiff neck to look in the direction of the sound. Wei 11 seemed to have her entire body dyed the same pure white as her beautiful long hair. The paper bag lying at her feet probably contained the underwear that she had prepared for Hitomi to put on. Aika, what are you doing with your magic costume? Wait a minute, I have an explanation to say. What's the point of explaining this? Ling grabbed Aika's sinful hands, and Lan Ming, who followed closely behind, quickly protected the disheveled Tong. Even if the child is not familiar with our world, it's despicable to ask her to take off her clothes for some strange reason. Wei 11, you have been following him just now, right? This kind of thing should be stopped without even thinking about it. While controlling Aika, Ling said to Wei 11, who had just arrived here. It's a pity that Wei 11 has burned out and turned into pure white. She probably didn't listen to Ling's words. Lan Ming had some experience with such complicated designs of clothes, and had already helped Aika put her clothes back on while Ling was pulling her away from Hitomi. Hitomi, don't be afraid. If Aika does something excessive to you, we will definitely help you teach him a lesson. Hitomi is so cute, you must remember not to allow others to touch you so easily. This is the consciousness that mature girls must have if they want to protect themselves from being eaten in this world. Although Tong didn't say anything, Lan Ming still used his elder sister's identity to teach the ignorant girl who was coming out of the boudoir for the first time like a child. That, Hitomi's clothes, were taken off by me. There was probably a commotion in the corridor of the small room that alerted everyone, and there was no time for Wei 11 to continue to freeze. After regaining her color, she defended in a low voice and wanted to stop the two from ignoring Aika's excuse and continuing to misunderstand. However, as soon as she took a step, she quickly picked up the paper bag that fell on the ground as if she remembered something, glanced at Aika and quickly hidden behind his back. It's just that Aika is too busy explaining to the angry Ling right now and has no intention of paying attention to Wei 11's new underwear that she accidentally left behind. In short, this is about doing the worst thing at the worst time, and then being bumped into by chance at the worst time, and finally leading to the worst misunderstanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 411. After the commotion subsided, Aika and Wei 11's explanations finally made Ling and Lan Ming understand the cause and effect. To sum up, when Wei 11 helped Hitomi change her clothes, she discovered that she was not wearing underwear under her kimono. When she went back to the room to find spare underwear, Hitomi woke up at this time and found that there was no one else in the room, so she went out to look for her, and then she saw Aika looked like she was ready to help her get dressed. This led to the worst misunderstanding above. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's rare that you want to do something for Hitomi, and I'm here to discourage you. Ling clasped her hands together and apologized, but, that scene looks too dangerous. Normally, the first thing that comes to mind is to stop it, right? In other words, the main reason this time is actually because Hitomi ran out of the room without getting dressed. Speaking of which, you must wear your underwear well. There is no need. After tidying up her clothes, Hitomi sat next to Aika and spoke calmly as if the commotion that just happened had nothing to do with her. Lanming and Ling looked at each other, and it was inconvenient to say anything more about this issue. They probably regard not wearing underwear as Hitomi's personal habit. After all, it is not polite to comment on other people's personal habits. Hitomi turned sideways and looked at Aika beside her. Of course Aika also noticed her gaze, and the two looked at each other for a while. I felt the master's mood at that time. Just such a simple sentence made Aika feel ashamed. Because Aika's inner feelings were too complicated at that time, she even forgot that Hitomi could feel her own feelings. At that time, all her feelings including her delusions about her were known to her. The three girls present all knew the meaning of this sentence, but there was no point in blaming Aika now, so they had no choice but to ignore it as if they had not heard it. Now that Hitomi has woken up, does that mean you have regained your energy? I have just recovered the magic power that can maintain my activity, so it doesn't matter if I stay here like this. But forcing yourself before you get used to it won't be good for your health. There's no need to rush with this kind of thing. We still have a lot of time to interact, so just take your time. It was rare for Wei 11 to act like a senior in front of Tong, who was also in a magic suit. Although judging from the history of the birth of magic equipment, there doesn't seem to be much difference between the two. Tong's eyes looked at Wei 11, and her scrutinizing gaze made Wei 11, who had been speaking confidently just now, start to doubt herself again. This scrutinizing gaze didn't last long before Tong looked away from Wei 11's face and stood up on the spot. Gone back, she said simply to Aika. Going back to the world over there, right? Hitomi nodded slightly, and the twin tails that had been tied up again returned to their plush look. Before that, she turned to Wei 11 again. She and I have something to say. Tong completely ignored Wei 11's answer and conveyed what seemed to be a somewhat willful request. She said goodbye to Ling and Lanming again with her eyes, and then turned into silver-white particles and disappeared from the place. Wei 11, who was named by Hitomi, sat there in confusion. Hitomi did say that she still had something to say to herself, and she didn't know whether her current mood was more of surprise or happiness. She had no unpleasant feelings towards Hitomi. Hitomi is also Aika's magic costume like herself, and she is Aika's sister who recognizes her. Wei 11 hopes to become friends with her. The conversation she's talking about should be referring to that world, right? After Aika reminded her like this, Wei 11 suddenly realized. It turned out that Hitomi's disappearance was because she had returned to the spiritual world to wait for herself. That. She stood up hastily. Since Hitomi was waiting for him, of course he couldn't keep her waiting for too long. But after standing up, she realized that if she wanted to have a conversation in the spiritual world, it couldn't be done here. I want to be there too, right? Come to my room, Wei 11. After the two sat side by side on the bed, Aika told Wei 11 her plan. I won't go there, Wei 11, you have to work hard. Wei 11's eyes widened in surprise. She originally thought that I also want to be there that Aika said before meant accompanying her to the spiritual world. Wei 11 thought about the possibility. Brother Aika, do you know what Hitomi wants to say to me? She asked dubiously, blinking her big watery eyes as if she wanted to get everything he knew out of Aika. I don't know. It's just that when she asked you by name, she probably meant that she didn't need me to be there. Otherwise, she would have asked us to go there together, right? In fact, Aika knew. Maybe Hitomi wanted to apologize for ignoring Way 11 before. Also, the wristband outerwear that suddenly appeared at hand brought Way 11's underwear, which may have something to do with Hitomi. If she wanted to talk to Way 11 alone, Aika could only think of these two things. But Aika didn't tell Way 11 now. Letting Way 11 know what Tong wanted to say in advance was a waste of Tong's thoughts, so Aika didn't say anything unnecessary. Do you want to get close to Hitomi? Yeah, I want to be friends. Way 11 lowered her head slightly and said shyly. Then take advantage of this opportunity. Hitomi is not a bad boy, you should know that, right? So don't be afraid, just tell her everything you want to tell her. Aika put her palm on the back of Way 11's hand, but Way 11's hand did not tremble because of nervousness. It seems that Aika made a mistake this time. Way 11 was not afraid of meeting Tong alone. Whether it was because of experiencing so many events or not, Way 11's mood had changed slightly. Although she had to face Hitomi whom she had only met a few times, Way 11 didn't feel any nervousness about being able to talk to her. I had the same feeling when facing the light flame sword. Maybe it's because of the mutual attraction between magic costumes, rather than the fear of the unknown when facing strangers. I will have a good talk with Hitomi. For the sake of brother Aika, and for myself. For myself. Before Aika understood the meaning of Way 11's last words, the petite figure disappeared. He felt the disappearing warmth from his palms with a sense of disappointment, and felt shaken because he had not seen through Way 11's thoughts for the first time. But this is exactly the problem that you will inevitably face in a long-term relationship. Girls are like a book that can never be finished. Even if you finish reading the page in your hand, you will never know what kind of story is behind it. It is precisely because of this that people can read endlessly and keep reading with interest. Aika used to think she knew Lugo and Ling very well as many other people. The constant personal experiences made Aika realize that she actually didn't understand them at all, and thinking so was just arrogance. These changes in Way 11 may have partly to do with herself, but more of it is the result of her own efforts and continuous thinking, so she gradually became less easy for Aika to see through at a glance. Thinking back to Way 11 in the past, the feeling left to Aika is also worth remembering. Because she is so simple and clear to the eyes, it is very easy to interact with her. Way 11, who has now become a little more complicated, has aroused Aika's interest in exploring her from different aspects. In order to continue to hold Way 11's little hand and move forward together, Aika must work harder to get closer to her. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 412. Way 11 landed gently on the ground where the cherry blossoms were in full bloom. Holding a red paper umbrella with her back to her, Tong seemed to be looking up at the pink petals falling from the branches. Of course she knew Way 11 was already here. This is her domain, and Way 11 can only enter this space with her permission, as she doesn't like to be disturbed by others. After Way 11 stood still, Hitomi gently turned the umbrella handle in her hand and turned around. He seemed to have no energy, and stared at Way 11, who was standing alone in front of him, with half-open eyes. This is the first time that Tong and Way 11 have met alone, and it is of extraordinary significance to any one of them. That Way 11 had just opened her mouth, but Tong's behavior made it impossible for her to finish her words. She slightly lowered her head towards Way 11. Although it was only a small movement, Way 11 knew what this movement meant. But Way 11 did not immediately recall the reason why Hitomi did this. Last time, when you were here too. After Hitomi's reminder, Way 11 recalled what happened at that time. Aika couldn't see herself here, but Hitomi, who could see it, didn't tell Aika, and pretended not to see herself and kissed Aika without permission. Is it, because of what happened at that time? Hitomi nodded slightly. Because the master wants me to apologize to you. It seems that Hitomi has her own thoughts about this apology, so she used Aika's request as a cover-up at this time. However, I also bear some responsibility, so I am asking you now apologize. Ha, I was just a little too anxious at that time, but I didn't really care. Wei 11 saw what Tong was really thinking. She smiled softly and understood, not feeling that Hitomi was only apologizing to herself because of Aika's request. I know. Wei 11 didn't want to be secretive anymore. At this time, she had full confidence. She had been in that world for a longer time and had been dating Aika for a longer time. She could stand up in front of Hitomi. I also need to apologize to you, Hitomi. She believed that she already knew clearly how Hitomi viewed herself in her heart. Perhaps, I made a contract with Brother Aika just because of my desire to be with him. Although this may also be Brother Aika's wish, in essence, it is because of my willful request that we have become what we are now. Such a relationship. This brought a lot of trouble to Brother Aika and Hitomi. I think this is a fault that I can't escape. So, even if I cried after that, I didn't need Hitomi to apologize. Hitomi didn't do it. Wrong. I've thought it through. The gentle breeze carrying the tranquil atmosphere of cherry blossoms blew between the two of them, and the pink petals floated between the two of them in the breeze. Wei 11 just held her long pure white hair blown by the breeze with her hands. Her eyes were fixed on the Japanese girl opposite her from beginning to end. However, my apology is limited to this. A confident smile appeared on her face. As Brother Aika's magic costume, I am also Brother Aika's partner. Just like you, Hitomi. For if I don't lose to you, I will definitely work harder to become a magic costume worthy of Brother Aika, and a girl worthy of him. Speaking of this, Wei 11's momentum instantly dropped by half, but she did not stop there. I will not choose to give up the option of staying with Brother Aika. In order to make up for the mistakes I made because of my willfulness, and to solve the troubles my willfulness has caused you, I can only become stronger. She took a deep breath and continued, so, I hope Hitomi can also support me, because this is something that only you can do. Can I take this to mean that you are asking for my help? That's not the case. Wei 11 pressed her chest with her hand. She promised Aika that she would tell Hitomi all the feelings she wanted to convey. I want to be Hitomi's friend. Because I like Hitomi very much for Aika's brother. The figure who fought bravely, thank you for protecting Brother Aika from the hands of death so many times. However, I think that my heart will never lose to you. Therefore, I also want to bring these two hearts together. These two thoughts will definitely bring more strength to Brother Aika. This was the expression that turned all of Wei 11's feelings into words. As if she was promoting her inner idealism, she tried her best to convey her thoughts to Hitomi. Regardless of whether she finished speaking or not, with her blushing face, she could only temporarily stop to adjust her breathing that had become disordered due to saying too many words at once. Hitomi listened carefully until the end, and she listened to every word Wei 11 said. Then, Hitomi quietly closed her eyes. It's not a bad idea. Although this may not be an answer to Wei 11, it is confirmed that Wei 11 heard it. Wei 11 knew that Tong had an expression of joy and expectation after listening to her words. Then Hitomi looked at Wei 11 again. Xueqiao 11G, this was the first time Hitomi called Wei 11 by her real name. She had never called Wei 11 by her name before. Do you want to be the master's partner? The unexpected question made Wei 11, who was looking forward to Hitomi's next words, blush instantly. Companion, mate. Partner, explained in human terms, refers to two close people spending their lives together and getting married. Hitomi seemed to really not know why Wei 11 didn't answer her question immediately, and explained the meaning of the word partner to her seriously. But Wei 11 certainly didn't know the meaning of this word. It was precisely because she knew what this word meant that she was so shy. Fortunately, Aika was not present at this time. She and Hitomi were the only two people here, otherwise Wei 11's little head might have short-circuited on the spot. The unexpected question only impacted Wei 11 for a moment before she readjusted her mentality. Whether it is as a magical costume named Snow Tide G or as a girl named Wei 11, the answer to this question is yes, and there is no escaping it. Facing Tong, who is in a similar position to her own, Wei 11 cannot escape. Although her face was still red, as if the burning heat would turn into reality in the next second, she still straightened her humble chest. "I want to be Brother Aika's partner." She conveyed it to Hitomi word for word. Then Hitomi blinked her eyes and opened her pink lips slightly. "I feel the same way as you and want to be your master's companion." The next unexpected question was an unexpected confession, and the continuous impact caused Wei 11's expression to change within a few seconds. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Hitomi tilted her head. Even if Aika is not here now and does not know that Hitomi has made such a confession, her reaction is too calm, which is in sharp contrast to the panicked Wei 11. Can I know the reason?" Wei 11 spoke cautiously. Although it is already known that Hitomi has been by Aika's side since he was born, it is not an exaggeration for Aika to call her her sister. But the amount of time she actually had contact with Aika in the real world can be counted on the fingers of both hands. Compared with myself, who has been dating Aika for a year, the conditions are really very different. Hitomi didn't hide her dependence on him in front of Aika, and it was even less possible to hide it in front of Wei 11. But on the surface, she doesn't have as many psychological struggles as Wei 11. It seems that everything about Aika is taken for granted for her. Because the master is very gentle. This reason is too common, but Wei 11 has no objection. The lack of objection proves that she admits the facts Tong said. "Besides, because of your presence." "Me? Originally, I thought that magic equipment and humans cannot transcend the existing master-slave relationship. Magic equipment has its own responsibilities, and we only need to do our duty for the master. This is the instinct of being a magic equipment. So, what I said before, I protected the master, may not be out of some kind of emotion, but following the instinct of the magic suit. Until not long ago, I thought so," Hitomi said calmly. This time he should have told Wei 11, but at this time it was more like Hitomi talking to himself. "Ever since you appeared, I have become abnormal. Watching you, who is also a magic costume, show completely different possibilities, often makes me feel uncomfortable and makes me question the meaning of becoming a magic costume. Until in this world, after thinking about this tree for a long time, I realized that protecting the master was not out of the magic suit's instinct, but because I wanted to do it. Because I wanted to protect him, so only then can I use my own power. But the more I use this power, the more uneasy I feel. Just relying on this power, can I bring happiness to my master like you? This kind of human-like emotion is what never happened before, only became abnormal after you appeared and you brought him in front of me." Although there was a subtle resistance in Wei 11's heart regarding Hitomi's mood, she had to accept the same feelings conveyed to her verbatim. "I want to protect him, I want to use my power for him." Maybe the instinct of magic equipment does exist, but how does this explain the self before signing a contract with him? The reason for such confusion is that it proves that Hitomi has the same mood as him. If Wei 11 regards this feeling as superficial, it is equivalent to denying her feelings for Aika. She can't do this, and she won't do it this way. Even so, can we still be friends? This time, Hitomi did face Wei 11 directly and left this question to her to answer. Wei 11 did not answer immediately. While listening to Tong's confession, Way 11's heart was sometimes surging, sometimes panicked, and sometimes unwilling to be outdone. And when it all ended with this last question, Way 11's heart suddenly became enlightened. There is no doubt that a small fire ignited in Way 11's heart. That was exactly what Aika had thought about, the possible competition between Way 11 and Hitomi. It's just that they are not facing each other as fellow demons, but as girls in love. Way 11 had no reason to panic, because she was the one who came first. Whether it's meeting him, kissing him, or falling in love with him. Whether it was the time spent with Aika or her desire to become a partner with Aika, Way 11 was completely confident that she would not lose to Hitomi. So she raised a smile that was neither humble nor arrogant, and accepted Hitomi's challenge as Aika's contracted magic outfit Snow Tide G and as Aika's family member Wuxi. Of course. We should support each other, right? No matter what the outcome is, I will accept it. The flag raised together with Luoluo and Ling is the love war between family members, and the letter of challenge accepted in this beautiful scenery is the merger of two girls who are both contracted magic costumes. Fight to be the first. After receiving Way 11's answer, Tong's expression seemed to have changed. In Way 11's eyes, that smile seemed to be recognition. Hitomi's smile was still as dreamy as her own, making Way 11 unable to tell whether it was true or false. Besides, there is one last thing I need to apologize to you for. Any more? Way 11 thinks that no matter what revelations Hitomi throws out now, she won't be surprised, because nothing is more surprising than the confession just now. Hitomi's fingertips gently turned the handle of the paper umbrella, and the cherry blossom petals falling from the branches brushed against the tilted umbrella surface. That night in the God Clan's territory, I took away your underwear. Way 11 blinked her eyes dully, a confused expression of "what are you talking about?" appeared on her face. That's the underwear you wore when you had a hypocritical contract ceremony with your master. I watched the whole process. I can't understand why you wear those fancy underwear when you do that kind of thing. Way 11's dull expression gradually collapsed. It didn't matter that her underwear was taken away by other girls. What she really couldn't believe was that Hitomi saw everything when she mustered up the courage to go further with Aika. Moreover, Hitomi was still describing it to him nakedly without modification, but he didn't even dare to interrupt her. Tong didn't seem to notice that Way 11 was about to cry as she listened. I don't know what the special significance of that approach is, so I'm thinking, is it necessary to use that kind of fancy underwear in order to add some key elements? No. It's not like that, I don't have that kind of plan. Way 11 had to lie again. She felt that it was impossible for Hitomi to know that she had put so much effort into choosing underwear, and this was her last struggle. If Tong could pick her up at this time, Way 11 might feel a little liberated, but Tong continued as if she didn't hear Way 11's excuse. I don't need to know what you are doing, because the master and I have already entered into an eternal contract. Perhaps it is because the contract you made midway is very fragile, and that ritual must be used to maintain the connection between you and the master. As a magic costume, I will not comment too much on the contract rituals of other magic costumes. Seeing that scene was not what I wanted, but the master tacitly allowed me to stay at the scene, so I have no reason to apologize to you. Say no more. Way 11 wished she could escape from this spiritual world now. If she wanted to, she could voluntarily leave Hitomi's spiritual world, but Way 11 couldn't even move forward because of the layers of shame. I took your underwear away just because I was accidentally involved in the transfer magic. It seemed that this incident caused a lot of commotion that night, and I only apologize to you for this. Now Way 11 was not concerned about the issue of underwear at all. Her mind still thought that Hitomi's words brought back pink memories and fell into confusion. And Tong didn't give Way 11 time to recover. What made this simple apology so complicated was just because of the human-like feelings in my heart that made me a little weird. This is how Hitomi rationalizes her behavior of slightly trying to embarrass Way 11. I have finished what I want to say, please go back. While Way 11 was still trapped in the chaos, Hitomi personally sent Way 11, who could not move forward, out of the spiritual world. Before leaving, Hitomi said something meaningful, maybe she only meant it in the simplest literal sense, but afterwards such a feeling did remain in Way 11's mind. From now on, let's support each other as friends, Shueshishiji. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 413. Way 11, who returned to the real world, was still in a panic, and didn't even notice that the scene in front of her had returned to a room inside the super-large aviation magic ship Yutra Hill. Way 11, your face is very red. For Aika, the communication between Way 11 and Hitomi only lasted a few seconds. Time flows much slower in the spiritual world than in the real world. Aika's voice aroused Way 11's violent reaction. She jerked her hand away from Aika's and backed away to the corner of the bed. This seemed to be Way 11's body's natural reaction. Only after noticing Aika's confused eyes did she figure out the current situation. Yes, I'm sorry. Did something happen when you met Hitomi? Way 11 looked completely different before and after entering, so Aika could only think of this reason. He knew that Tong had a subtle competitiveness towards Way 11. Could it be that Way 11 was bullied by Tong again inside? However, Way 11's smile later made Aika know that she had misunderstood. That smile is definitely not the cheerful one that can be shown by pretending to be strong after being bullied. No, and Hitomi and I have become friends. Really, that's great. Aika caught Way 11, who had escaped, back to her side, and touched her head to encourage her, although I didn't know you guys were chatting inside. Nothing, but if the result is good, you must have worked hard. Aika's gentle caress gradually calmed down Way 11's heart that was still pounding in her chest. Of course, I think Hitomi is the same. Although she still doesn't understand many things about this world, she has worked very hard. Well, Hitomi apologized to me. Yeah. Did brother Aika know from the beginning? Well. Aika looked away and scratched her cheek, haha, it's exposed. I just guessed this. I was actually tricked by you, little rascal. Aika put a little more force on Way 11's hand to punish her. But for Way 11, this probably couldn't be called punishment. She narrowed her eyes happily. After enjoying the small punishment, Way 11 took the initiative to sit up from Aika's body. It's not because Aika let go of Way 11, but because Way 11 didn't indulge in this happiness. Way 11 knew that to support this happiness, it was not enough to just rely on it blindly. Hitomi and I have another agreement. In such a short period of time, you have already had that kind of relationship, but the time in the spiritual world may be much longer than I imagined. Aika was also very touched by the agreement between Way 11 and Hitomi. Interested, can I know about that agreement? No, this is a secret between Hitomi and I. Then I'll go and ask Tong directly. Tong will tell me whatever I ask. In fact, this is just Aika's bluff. He didn't know if Hitomi would tell him truthfully anything he asked her, but he felt that she probably wasn't very good at hiding secrets. Way 11, who had deliberately tried to pass her off just now, really took the bait, waving her hands in dissatisfaction. Don't ask, the little fist hit Aika's chest, I just want to leave a mysterious feeling to brother Aika. Of course, even if Way 11 wasn't so panicked, Aika wouldn't really get to the bottom of it from Hitomi. After all, Way 11 has already stated that the agreement is a secret between the two of them, and Aika is not so evil. It's getting late, maybe a new day has arrived. Aika continued to play with Way 11 for a while, and her excitement after chatting with Hitomi had calmed down. When the excitement just dissipated, sleepiness came over him. After Aika sent Way 11 back to the room opposite, the last tumultuous night of today finally came to an end. It was a very long day in every sense of the word, but it was different from the long days it had felt in the past. There are all kinds of beautiful things everywhere. If it was a long day in this sense, Aika would like to experience it more times. While lying on the bed, the silver-white wristband of fiery eyes placed on the table reflected the moonlight pouring into the room from the window. Yggdrasil has flown above the clouds, and the moonlight without any thin clouds is so clear and bright. Good night, Hitomi. See you tomorrow. Did Hitomi also say good night and see you tomorrow to herself? Of course Aika couldn't find the answer from the silver-white wristband, who remained silent as always, but Aika felt like she knew Hitomi's answer. Therefore, he was looking forward to the coming tomorrow for the first time in a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 414. That was what happened when Anja secretly went to the Holy Land alone and in disguise to meet with Pope Sethis on behalf of Zi Mingyila in order to cooperate with the Holy See. On the opposite side, a girl stepped out of the motorcycle at the same time, wearing a knee-length skirt full of lace and ruffles. The overall impression given to Anja was that she was a bit fancy, but had to admit that she was very cute. Since that person would come to a place like this in a special car, he was either a noble like himself who wanted to come here in person to do things, or he was someone affiliated with the Holy See. The girl coming from the opposite side had obviously noticed Anja, but the two of them just exchanged a brief glance, and the girl immediately lost interest in Anja and walked in front of her. In order to avoid lurking informants, Anja had tried her best to avoid too many contacts with people unrelated to this operation, so the girl ignored her and she was relieved. The girl walking in front of Anja seemed to forget that there was Anja following her as she walked. As if she hadn't been back here for a long time, she looked around at the surrounding scenery, and from time to time she paused at the fork in the road as if she couldn't recognize the way. When the buildings in the sanctuary could already be seen, a tall girl who seemed to be 16 or 17 years old, who seemed to have been waiting there for a long time, noticed the two people walking towards them. Those turquoise eyes that exuded gentleness and kindness had an unusual frosted beauty, but Anja was not impressed by her appearance. If she frequents the sanctuary and has met somewhere before, she should be able to recognize her immediately. The girl happily came up with a smile, picked up the little girl and lifted her up high. However, the little girl who was lifted up was obviously unwilling. Is the little girl behind you the follower you picked up from Shiyu Academy? It turned out that the little girl only noticed Anja following her at this time, but she didn't seem to mind that Anja had been following her for such a long time. Who knows? Really, Liuyan has been waiting for you for a long time. It's rare to come back, so come to my house and sit for a while first. I didn't come back to play with you. Don't say such heartless words. I heard Lord Sethis say that after you finally think of coming back, he will be waiting for you here every day. That sounds even scarier. Do you have any inexplicable obsession? Because Kokona hasn't appeared in the Holy See for a long time. The tall girl wearing the uniform of the Vatican's Blue Knight ignored the awkward attitude of the smaller girl and talked to herself, holding her hand and walking towards Anja's unknown destination. It turns out that the girl who looks about the same age as herself is named Kokona. Anja secretly remembered the name she heard for the first time. After waiting behind the two of them for them to leave, Anja continued walking to the pre-arranged place. When there are unknown people in front of her, Anja will not take the initiative to pass them, but will habitually walk behind them. Especially for big figures as high as their Blue Knights, if you cross them rashly, you may be criticized and lose a lot of time. When they walked to the place where the two people had just communicated, an envelope folded in half caught Anja's attention. She bent down and picked up the envelope. The little girl probably dropped it when she was lifted high, but she left without noticing. However, when Anja opened the envelope, she received a shock that was hundreds of times greater than it would have been in a few seconds. The envelope embroidered with gold patterns was the custom-made letter of entrustment sent to Master Aurora. It was natural that Anja, who delivered it to the store by hand every time, could not mistake that kind of envelope. That this envelope is here could only prove a problem. Until the end, Anja did not meet the little girl who dropped the envelope again, but asked the other priests in the sanctuary to return the envelope to her. Although it was not confirmed, Anja still told Zi Ming about it after that. Although that name was unfamiliar to Anji, Zi Ming had heard of it before. Coconut, a famous magician mechanics genius in human history, is a Blue Knight who belongs to the Holy See. She is also the professor of magic mechanics at Frost Moon Academy and is very famous even in the mainland. Zi Ming silently remembered this name in her heart, and she did not explain it to Anja specifically. It might be better not to let her know about the connection between Aurora and Professor Coconut for the time being. Gradually, Anja seemed to no longer pay attention to this matter. When the first prince of the Bis Empire returned, Zi Ming got the chance to leave the birdcage. She thought of borrowing the power of the Holy See again, as long as Professor Coconut could keep her appointment as scheduled. Professor Coconut did as Zi Ming wished and visited the suburban castle where she was imprisoned. Most people in August know Professor Coconut only to the extent that they have heard of her name, and private information such as her appearance has basically become a secret. Professor Coconut is an elusive figure both in the Bis Empire and the Holy See. The Holy See has not disclosed her identity. As a member of the Blue Knights, she is also a non-combatant. It is even less likely that Shimizuki Academy will leak private information that may threaten the genius of magical mechanics. The whimsical concepts of those magic machines, or the various designs disclosed under the identity of Master Aurora, have never been given an identity directly related to her. Professor Coconut is more like a name that only exists in concept. So when the maid responsible for receiving Professor Coconut brought her to this suburban castle, the other princes and nobles only thought that she was just a simple fashion designer, but did not expect that her other two identities were the Blue Knights of the Holy See. And concurrently serves as Professor of Magical Mechanics at Frost Moon Academy. Wow, this is August Castle. The center of the Bis Empire. The girl with slender twin ponytails swaying under her little hat opened her arms and turned around in the hall of Zi Ming's castle. The guards placed in the castle and the spies of the Senate were all monitoring the little girl who had just arrived, but Professor Coconut was just innocently feeling the majesty of the castle. This place is much better than my shabby laboratory. I will ask that old lady Phyllis to build me a laboratory like this sometime. But without an elevator, it will be very hard to climb up and down. By the way, if you don't have an elevator, just build one yourself. Master Aurora, please. I'm coming. Every time the maid took a few steps, she had to look back to see if the legendary Master Aurora was following her. It took a lot of effort. In fact, from the moment she walked into the castle gate, Professor Coconut had already noticed the eyes focused on her. As a Blue Knight of the Holy See, although his specialty is not fighting, if he doesn't even have the most basic insight, he is not qualified to stand with Wei 11 Liuyan and the others. On the surface, the delivery port of the tailor shop is equipped with a teleportation magic device, and all customized commission letters will be sent to her research laboratory in Shimizuki Academy. The messy room in Aika's eyes was actually the studio where she used her identity as Master Aurora to let herself go and create when she was idle and bored. Is the person I want to see next the current queen? Yes, this is the castle of Her Royal Highness the Queen, Zi Ming Yila. I will show you the way. So, this is where Her Royal Highness the Queen lives. No wonder there are so many guards here. The maid looked at Professor Coconut quietly, fearing that she might ask some questions that she couldn't answer. Being given the task of leading Professor Coconut, the maid actually felt uneasy in her heart. She knew that the current state of the BZ Empire was very abnormal, but there were many things that she couldn't say nonsense. If you accidentally spill the beans, something terrible may be waiting for you. Fortunately, Professor Coconut was still just looking around, and it seemed that she didn't have any thoughts about the queen she was about to meet. Arriving at the door of the top room, the maid stopped. There are also heavily armed guards guarding here, and the level of security is far beyond what can be compared to the lower levels. Perhaps it was affected by the recent invasion by elven girls, or it may just be that some people took advantage of the situation and tightened their control over this place. Is Her Royal Highness the Queen here? Professor Coconut asked first and even startled the maid. It's like biting my tongue. Ha ha ha, you are more nervous than me. I'm so sorry, I lost my temper. Because Zi Ming's attitude towards the maids was not very enthusiastic, many things that were originally within his scope would be rejected by Zi Ming. It can be clearly seen that under the current background of the BZ Empire, the maids were also angered by Zi Ming and received indifferent treatment. Most of the maids assigned to work here come from auxiliary families. They are all girls who have no chance to fight for the power of the princes and nobles. Facing a cold master like Zi Ming, she was naturally nervous. Every time she came into contact with her, she could only be cautious and try not to make unnecessary moves. Of course, the maids hope to get along well with their masters, but Zi Ming does not trust them and regards them as the same existence as the princes and nobles who are struggling for power. This will inevitably lead to a growing gap between the two parties. Can I just go in like this? Hey, please wait a moment, I need to inform Her Royal Highness the Queen first. After Zi Ming's voice of consent came from the dormitory, the maid made way for Professor Coconut. Professor Coconut opened the dormitory door and walked in. It was as magnificent a room as imagined. There were also bedrooms like this in the Holy See. The room where Wei 11 and Lu Yin used to live together was somewhat similar to the scene here. Zi Ming, who was sitting at the table, turned around and drove the wheelchair towards Professor Coconut. Welcome, Master Aurora. There was a haggard smile on her face. But Professor Coconut thought that even with such a smile, she had never shown it in front of the maids. Who is the more pitiful person compared to Her Royal Highness the Queen, who is among the tens of thousands of people in front of her and those maids? Maybe both sides, they are just poor victims. Professor Coconut quietly manipulated the small mechanism hidden in the fluttering sleeves, and the clutter of magic flowed through the entire dormitory in an instant. Zi Ming immediately discovered this abnormality, because her wheelchair also lost its magic control and could not move. Now that I have stopped all the magic machines in the room, if we have anything to say, let's talk directly, Her Royal Highness Queen Zimingila. Professor Coconut took the small switch hidden in her sleeve and turned it. He shook his head and showed a playful smile. To be honest, you still called me Master Aurora when I came in, because you were worried about the surveillance equipment here, right? Although I don't think they will do this, it's better to be cautious. Zi Ming finally showed a reassuring expression. Since the genius professors in the field of magic mechanics have said so, I can rest assured. Yes. First meeting, Professor Coconut. This was the first meeting between Zi Ming and Professor Coconut, but the two had a literal communication through an invitation letter beforehand. The words in the invitation imply that you already know my identity, right? As expected of Her Majesty the Queen, if I hadn't noticed the metaphor you left in the invitation, I wouldn't have come here. The only thing that has made Professor Coconut leave the laboratory so far is a request from Liu Yin, which was to go to the 4th underground floor of the Imperial City Defense Bureau to restore data in April. And that time, Professor Coconut also eliminated all information related to herself when she left. I think if Coconut taught you, you would definitely notice that simple trick. So, when you invite me to the deepest forbidden area of the BZ Empire this time, it shouldn't be just for a simple matter of taking measurements for a custom-made dress for the banquet, right? Thank you for being so sensible. In fact, I personally have a merciless request, and I want to entrust Professor Coconut, who is a genius in magic mechanics. Although I usually don't care about politics and other national affairs, I still know the current situation of the BIS Empire. Because my students are also related to your things, I went back to the Holy See to investigate. For a moment, Professor Kokina pushed Zi Ming's wheelchair to the guest sofa, and she sat opposite Zi Ming. The thing you asked me to do at this time would be very dangerous if you were discovered, right? To be honest, I would rather just keep safe and prepare the banquet dress for Her Highness the Queen and then go back. If you really thought so, you wouldn't be here in person right now. Zi Ming did not say such provocative words. I've heard that Professor Kokina really doesn't care about the BIS Empire or the Holy See. But I heard that my imperial sister Lan Mingyila smuggled herself to Xuanjiu Academy after escaping from prison. Doesn't it have any connection with your students? Zi Ming had also learned about Ikakins from the information brought back by Ng. They attracted Zi Ming's attention when Augustus caused an uproar. Of course, the fact that Ikachiz, who was studying at Frost Moon Academy, became a student of the famous Professor Kokina was also controlled by Zi Ming. Do you want to use this to threaten me? Professor Kokina asked Zi Ming with a cute smile on her face. Of course she would not come to August, the center of the BZ Empire, empty-handed. Just as she can now stop all the magic machines in the room with just a move of her fingers, there may be more weapons under the light and cute clothes that are beyond the concept of modern magic machines. Of course not. You must have also questioned the rumors about the Imperial Sister's treason. It is precisely because your student Ikakins believed this that he took action for the Imperial Sister. Since I am just a vase of the BZ Empire to the outside world, even the right to participate in the parliament was taken away by that group of people. Naturally, I hope that Sister Huang and your students can do something more for this country. I don't want to continue to use this powerless gesture to pin my hopes on other people. On my body. I believe that if I have the power of Professor Kokina, I can definitely do something. This banquet is my only chance to leave this castle, and it may also be the last chance to save this pedantic country, so I will definitely seize it. Take this opportunity. If Professor Kokina can help me. For an elusive genius like Professor Kokina, naturally we cannot use the rhetoric of knowing with reason and moving with emotion to move her. Zi Ming knew this very well. Since he wanted to get her help, he had to make clear the benefits that would bring her at the same time. Now, Sister Huang and your students must also be thinking about ways to break the status quo. I don't want Sister Huang to be the only one fighting with them, while I hide in this safe castle. If I can get the means to resist the status quo, ability may be able to open up a path for them and end this unreasonable dispute. Doesn't Professor Kokina hope to return to his original life? Professor Kokina knows that Ika is currently hiding somewhere on the mainland with the third princess who escaped from prison. Now she did not stay in the research room of Frost Moon Academy, but returned to the Holy See. It was a rare opportunity for her to use her status as a Holy See Knight to do something for them. It can be said that Zi Ming's core ideas coincide with hers. Of course, it was impossible for Ziming to guess all Professor Kokina's thoughts in advance. All she knew was the teacher-student relationship between Professor Kokina and Ika. Everything else was connected based on Professor Kokina's possible psychology. She was not sure enough, but she just boldly gambled that Professor Kokina might be tempted by him. Professor Kokina put away her smile and calmly thought about Zi Ming's request for a few seconds. Then, she returned to her original, childlike smile. Okay, I can help. But what exactly do you need me to do, Her Majesty the Queen? I can't take you to escape from this castle, but any other Holy See Knight should do it. It can all be done easily. Zi Ming shook her head. What she wanted to ask the genius of magic mechanics to do was certainly not so barbaric. Moreover, Zi Ming does not want to rely entirely on Professor Kokina's power, the most important thing is still himself. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 415. As they approached the border of the Tiburai kingdom, Hitomi slowed down the sailing speed of the super-large aviation magic ship Yggdrasil. The large and small wars taking place on the border of the Tiburai kingdom have never stopped. Although Pope Sethis prepared a relatively safe route for everyone, for the sake of caution, Ika decided to keep a low profile as much as possible to avoid being discovered by the forces of the Bis Empire. Everyone is in the cockpit now. Although it sounds grand, in fact, even after including Hitomi and the light flame sword, there are only 6 people present, which is more than enough for the spacious cockpit. So far, there is no shadow other than us in the surrounding airspace, right? At least there is no trace of the aviation magic ship. They can't hide if they are around me. Hitomi unfolded the spacious 3-dimensional airspace map, but it was still empty. This is not the main place for fighting on the front line. It is said that there are too many mountains below that are not suitable for fighting. After entering from here, we will speed up to the royal capital. There is an aviation magic ship ahead. Hitomi, take a look at their identification codes. Ika also glanced at the control panel that Hitomi has full control over. The signals are all from small aviation magic ships that use weakened weapons to enhance speed. It doesn't matter, the Holy See told us before. The kingdom will send people to help us, and it should be them. Sethis has already communicated with the Tiburai kingdom in advance, and sent these small aviation-guided ships to escort Ika and the others. If there were no forces from the Tiburai kingdom around as a sign, I am afraid that Yggdrasil would be indiscriminately bombarded by the kingdom's army as an enemy as soon as it entered the territory of the Tiburai kingdom. Hitomi, come over. Yggdrasil has long since given up its autopilot mode. If Hitomi is around, just tell her which way to go. However, at this time, Yggdrasil's actions completely changed according to her mood. Although Ika told her many times to slow down, it actually didn't slow down much compared to before. It doesn't matter even if you are attacked. Hitomi seemed to have absolute confidence in Yggdrasil as a part of her, and she did not follow Ika's instructions. The silver-white super-large aviation-guided ship slowly flew towards the 3 waiting small aviation-guided ships. After confirming each other's signals, the other party turned the ship in the same direction as Ika and the others, which probably meant that they could just follow them. Just follow them and keep going. Ika's goal is to reach an agreement with the Tiburai kingdom. The primary purpose is to investigate the mimetic magic equipment that has flowed into the battlefield to obtain information that can completely destroy the source of the mimetic magic equipment. Of course, their core purpose remains to end the war, and that will never change. The Pope is so proud. Lan Ming murmured to himself, although I knew a long time ago that the Holy See and the BZ Empire are actually 2 different organizations, but now it seems that they have long been. Before this war broke out, we had established a cooperative relationship with the Kingdom of Tiburai. Although the Holy See is just a religious organization on the surface, it is actually a small country, right? What is the Pope's purpose, exactly? I think Dad is thinking about mankind. Is it for the sake of mankind? From the perspective of long-term human development, annexing the Kingdom of Tiburai and unifying the 2 human countries is also for the sake of mankind. This is the idea of the Senate. The idea of unifying mankind. There is nothing wrong in nature, but it is also divided into right and wrong methods. If you use the wrong method, no matter how you flaunt your righteousness, you are just deceiving yourself and others. Lan Ming was a little unwilling, but he must admit the core idea of the Senate. If it is correct, the approach is not bad. I believe that my desire to establish a cooperative relationship between the BZ Empire and the Tiburai Kingdom has the same goal. Looking at it now, at least the Holy See did not maliciously provoke a war and did not affect the general public. Ika and the others knew the purpose of Pope Sethis' eagerness to help them connect, but they did not tell Lan Ming at this critical moment, so as not to make her distrust the Holy See and increase her psychological burden. But after thinking about it, Ika decided that it would be better to let Lan Ming know. After all, she was the one who needed to directly negotiate with the Holy See in the future, not Ica as an intermediary. When Ica made a deal with the Holy See, Inili revealed the true purpose of Pope Thetis. That is to make the royal family and the Senate lose the trust of the people after experiencing this turmoil, and the Holy See can rely on the faith it has accumulated to become a new pillar of mankind. Have you ever discussed issues of that level with the Holy See? Even if Ica didn't tell Lan Ming, she was more or less aware of it. It was only after getting Ica's words that she became more sure. Now, Elder, the radicals of the Academy are the evil that has manifested in mankind. The two countries that rule mankind have a history of hundreds of years. The royal family of the Tiberai kingdom are also heroes in cross-border wars, and the Ila family is just because of the saint. Your Excellency has gained more popularity as a representative, so we have no reason for the kingdom to give up its rights. After constant rational thinking, and also out of the desire to make human beings more closely connected, Lan Ming repeatedly proposed the plan to have good relations with the Bizi Empire and the Tiberai Kingdom at the August Council. Suddenly, the three small aviation magic ships leading the way in front of Yutra Hill were hit by artillery fire from below. The heavy weapons and magic barriers collided, creating a dazzling light, and the thick smoke generated after the explosion instantly blocked out sunlight. At the same time, the bottom plate of Yutra Hill was also attacked by the same attack. As expected, there is also an ambush by the Bizi Empire army here. The three small aviation-guided ships that were hit directly showed no tendency to fall immediately. They began to counter-attack frantically against the bombardment from the ground. Fortunately, this is just the border of the kingdom that will become a front-line battlefield sooner or later. The general public has already been evacuated to the interior. However, the ground positions fighting small aviation magic ships will also cause countless casualties of Imperial soldiers. Hitomi, how are our injuries? No problem. None of the dashboards raised alarms. Although the shelling from the ground was indeed aimed and hit, the shaking degree of Yutra Hill was not obvious. Hitomi said that the magic barrier of the super-large aviation magic ship is not comparable to ordinary mass-produced products. It was this magic barrier that protected the ship just now. Although the huge Yggdrasil can easily become a target, as long as there is a magic barrier converted from the oldest molecular power furnace, it is not a fear. The slow-moving old aviation-guided ships in front were not so lucky. This was obviously an ambush that had been prepared for a long time. Despite the ground bombardment by the small aviation magic ship, the attacks from the ground still did not stop. Hitomi, just rush out. Aren't you going to fight back? If we fight back, many people will be involved, and we don't need to get entangled with them. This time Hitomi obeyed Ica's request, and the acceleration of Yggdrasil began to increase. Immediately afterwards, the second and third attacks hit the bottom of Yutra Hill one after another. Compared with those small aviation magic ships, it is obvious that a large target like them is easier to attack. The Imperial Army may also feel the fear from the majesty of Yggdrasil, and they gather firepower to shoot it down. The barrier needs to be converted into power, you have to cover it. I see. Hitomi said simply, and Wei 11 immediately understood. The pale blue barrier became the protective umbrella of Yutra Hill, and the super-large aviation magic ship whose speed suddenly increased turned into a silver-white meteor and left the battlefield in the blink of an eye. Lan Ming, do you know the location of the royal capital? Without a map. Hitomi. Sorry, there are no maps for this era. Ica, where's the PDA? By the way, you can use the PDA when you get here. Ica activated the PDA, and Unili's figure seemed to be eager to appear, but she narrowed her eyes after seeing so many people present. Everyone in the cockpit already knew her. Even Hitomi and the Light Flame Sword, who just came to the real world yesterday, are old acquaintances with the saint during the cross-border war. Is this already the kingdom of Tiberai? Inili, can you locate the location of the palace? Please, we don't have a navigation. Don't think of me as a woman who is as convenient as the machine in your hand. Inili frowned as if she was troubled. Inili, help me. Hitomi has also become good at asking for help. It's not a bad feeling. Hitomi's attention had already left the control panel when Inili appeared, but even so, Yggdrasil continued to sail smoothly in a straight line. If we fly down in the opposite direction at such a fast speed, we will be farther and farther away from the royal capital. If we leave the range of magic technology, the machine will lose its function. Inili, it will disappear. Guanjianjian also interjected. It was obviously just an implicit threat, but it sounded more intimidating than an overt threat. Okay, after all, I can be considered a product of electronic magic now. It is still easy to find the map of this country in the network of Tiburai Kingdom. After having Inili's navigation, everyone was lucky enough to know that there was nothing wrong with heading in the fastest direction. They have entered the interior of the Tiburai Kingdom, which has not yet been affected by the border war. There was no raging war, and it was still peaceful on the surface. But hidden under the tranquility like stagnant water, people's fear has undoubtedly penetrated into every corner. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 416. Approaching the royal capital from the border of Tiburai Kingdom. It only took less than an hour at the speed of Yggdrasil. Before entering the royal capital, the kingdom's old aviation magic ship also appeared, guiding Yggdrasil to land at the royal capital's dedicated airport. Under the constant vigilance of the kingdom's army, Ika and the others walked out of Yggdrasil. The royal capital's dedicated airport has been surrounded by kingdom soldiers armed with guns. The middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s who seems to be protected must be the king of the Tiburai kingdom. After seeing Lan Ming, the leader among them, the king raised his hand, and the surrounding kingdom soldiers saw this and put down the firearms in their hands. Thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty. As soon as she set foot on this land, Lan Ming resumed her identity as the third princess of the Bizi Empire and began to talk cordially with the king of the country. Ika nodded to Hitomi, and Yggdrasil, which was even larger than the largest aviation-guided ship in the kingdom of Biri, turned into silver-white magic particles and dissipated in the air, leaving only the next area was an empty tarmac and the stunned kingdom soldiers. Probably none of the soldiers present could have imagined that the luxurious aviation magic ship that could not be manufactured with existing technology was actually just a product of magic. Everyone had a look of dumbfounded expression on their faces. In comparison, the reaction of everyone at Shigetsuki Academy was relatively small when they saw Yggdrasil for the first time. As expected of Shigetsuki Academy, which specializes in the study of supernatural abilities, it can easily accept situations that are far beyond common sense. We are also honored to have the opportunity to communicate with you in person from His Holiness Pope Thetis. Ever since His Excellency the Emperor met with misfortune in your country, we failed to deal with the accident promptly and reasonably on the spot, which led to this war. I deeply apologize for this. I have learned the general story of the matter from His Holiness the Pope. During this period, Her Royal Highness the Princess was also criticized by the Bizi Empire, and your hard work for the sake of our two countries was in vain. You do not have to ask the Kingdom of Tiburai apologize. Thank you for your understanding. Without further delay, please move to the palace now. This is the home court of Lan Ming and the King of Tiburai Kingdom. Ika and the others who are following Lan Ming seem to be doing nothing. That king looks like a good man. He feels completely different from those fierce old men in the Senate. It's probably because of the preconceived impression. After all, they have that kind of purpose. Besides, isn't there an old lady in the Senate who looks very kind? Ika and Ling whispered behind Lan Ming's back, not feeling nervous at all when facing the king of a country. Wei 11 seemed to not know when the exchange between Lan Ming and the king would be transferred to her, and she looked around nervously. Hitomi, on the other hand, was curious about the new environment and looked at the people and things around her casually. Even though she might walk around in such an occasion at any time, she would not feel any violation at all. Now she was just taking a casual look, probably because there was nothing particularly attractive to her around. Having said that, although Aika probably knows what Hitomi doesn't like, he has never heard of what she really likes. What exactly attracts her attention? The light flame sword moved forward a small step, interjecting into the whispers between Aika and Ling. Would it be better if we weren't there? It doesn't matter. Only the people of that era know your true identity, as long as you act like ordinary people. Really, but I feel like the people around us are looking at us. Maybe it's just because your clothes are a bit conspicuous. Hey, is that so? The light flame sword leaned close to Aika and spoke softly, as if whispering in his ear. If you just whisper, you don't need this distance at all. Hey, what are you doing? Seeing this, Ling unceremoniously pulled away the sword of light and stuck it to Aika's body. Isn't it appropriate to talk in low voices at times like this, my lord? You did it on purpose, Ling angrily asked Guanjun's sword, but still deliberately lowered her voice. If you keep fooling around, just go back. Even though he said that, Ling had no way to further restrict the light flame sword. Probably because of this serious occasion, the light flame sword did not continue to pester Aika. He just gave Ling a smile that said, I will definitely succeed next time. It was like a challenge to her. Not only the appearance, but also the abnormal behavior of several people also attracted the attention of the king of Tiburai Kingdom. Are there among them the two major families of the Bizi Empire that His Holiness the Pope mentioned? And who are the others? Partners with the same goal, is that right? This was the first time that Lan Ming was so unconfident in answering the king's question. Fortunately, the king didn't get too entangled in it. The main issue they discussed was nothing more than the mimicry magic equipment that flowed from the Protoss territory into the frontline battlefield. The key problem is that the military is now managed by the heads of each jurisdiction. Because responsibilities are dispersed, it must be very difficult to specifically trace where that weapon was introduced. We can only report to the national magicians who have been equipped with that weapon. The force is investigating. Because of the sudden outbreak of the war, the Tiburai Kingdom was not as organized as the long-planned Bes Empire. It was just thinking about how to resolve this misunderstanding and hurriedly responded to the war. And the answer they gave was the same as Aika and the others planned before. If they want to track down the mimicry magic equipment, they can only go deep into the frontline battlefield in person. Can you tell us the general situation of those battlefields now? You also need to understand. I have asked the person in charge of this area to wait outside. The king called the man who had been waiting outside the meeting hall. He was probably an officer in charge of the military operations of the Tiburai Kingdom. Nowadays, the most intense fighting is naturally on the border between the Bizi Empire and the Tiburai Kingdom. Now the war has advanced to some surrounding small cities, and the refugees have gathered inland to seek refuge. Other border areas were also divided into multiple small battlefields at the same time. Just like the area where Yutra Hill was attacked by the ground, areas that had not been affected by the war were occupied faster than intelligence. The battlefield of the Tiburai Kingdom has been scattered by the Bis Empire, and its combat power is seriously insufficient. It can be said that in comparison, the combat power of the Bis Empire is overwhelming, both in terms of military strength and equipment. The war has been going on for half a month. It should have advanced faster than it is now, and the inland areas are no longer safe zones. But for some unknown reason, their command system suddenly experienced irreparable chaos. Confidential information including war deployments was also leaked to the headquarters of the Kingdom of Tiburai, allowing the kingdom's army to find an opportunity to take advantage of the situation and regain balance. Ended the battle. In other words, 60% of the territory of the Tiburai Kingdom is still safe, and the interior can basically maintain the daily necessities of the citizens normally. Even if there is a war, will it only be contained in the border areas? Yes, Our magic technology is developed independently in each region, so the weapons that the Holy See calls mimetic magic equipment have flowed into our country by exploiting this loophole. Of course, weapons of unknown origin cannot be tolerated. It has undoubtedly greatly improved the combat effectiveness of our military, and there are no special negative reports, so we do not pay attention to this issue. Her Royal Highness Princess Lan Mingyila, if the mimicry magic equipment is really as harmful as the Pope conveyed, then we cannot use such dangerous weapons. Now that His Majesty the King has expressed his position, it will be easy to handle. Ika came here just for this kind of thing. He took the place of Lan Ming to talk to the king. Which region started to equip the mimic magic equipment first? This kind of information is checked in chronological order. You should be able to find out when the report is uploaded, right? Then arrange for us to join the army, and we will do the specific work. There is no problem in arranging you in the army. I believe that the companions brought by Her Royal Highness Princess Lan Mingyila will not be spies of the Bis Empire. But what about your personnel configuration? Me and the two of them are enough. The candidate has already been decided on Yutrashal. The officer looked at the two girls named by Ika with slight surprise. They looked to be under 14 years old. A girl who is about the same age as her own daughter, with evasive eyes, and a girl whose expressions make it difficult to tell what she is thinking. First of all, I want to make a statement to you. The following questions are not malicious, but I have to be responsible for my army. The officer is also a person who has seen a lot of the world. He did not immediately question Ika's choice because he was able to standing in this position. Can you guarantee that they are all magicians who can stand alone? Let's put it this way. I can use the name of the Kin's family to guarantee that they are necessary for me. Is that okay? Since we can get the guarantee from the Kin's family. The officer looked at the king with a pleading look, and the king waved his hand decisively. There is no doubt that their strength has been demonstrated with that epoch-making aviation magic ship. The super-large aviation magic ship Yggdrasil landed at the royal capital's exclusive airport. Ika really wanted to use it to show his strength to the Tiburai kingdom, so he let it be summoned at will in front of the king. And dissipate. In that case, I will sort out the areas where reports were submitted first and arrange for the three of you to join the local troops. Do you need a rest today? As long as you make arrangements, we can leave at any time. Ika, don't be so anxious. Ika then controlled Yggdrasil and carried everyone across the continent to the kingdom of Tiburai. Now he was hurriedly preparing to leave for the front-line battlefield. Lan Ming was a little worried that his body would not be able to support it. Even if you lie on the bed with your eyes closed at this time, you can't sleep soundly. Okay, Ika smiled. By the way, the Holy See said it would send the Blue Knights to support us. Are they here now? Those two are currently busy with official business and seem to have not left the Holy See yet. That's it? Ika glanced at Wei 11 who was sitting next to him. Originally, he wanted Wei 11 to meet Lu Yin before setting off. Sister Ling, can you give me a message? Just tell me, I will tell her for you. If Xiaoying comes here, please tell Sister Ling. This time, Wei 11 was not reluctant to leave because she couldn't see Liu Yin. I'll set off with brother Ika first, don't worry about us. This time after this war is over, we will be back. I understand, keep working hard. She touched Wei 11's head, then looked at Ika. Since I'm not with them, you should take good care of them on my behalf. Because the manpower on Ika's side is now very short, otherwise the candidate to enter the front-line battlefield with him would undoubtedly be Ling. But Lan Ming no longer has Xiaoluo to protect him. If Ling is moved away, she will become defenseless, so Ling, who is the safest, is left by Lan Ming's side. This choice also reflects Ika's eagerness to solve this incident personally, and her full trust in Ling's strength and strength. Don't you feel that Wei 11 can take care of herself now? Tong is also very mature, so she doesn't need to rely on me at all, right? I agree with the first part, Hitomi said with a childish face and childish voice. It probably seemed like a warm scene in the eyes of others who didn't know the relationship between the two, but without the master, I can't continue to exist in this world. That's it? I hope that no one from the Tiburai kingdom present misunderstood Hitomi's last words. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 417. Lan Ming stayed in the royal capital to continue discussing future plans with the king, while Ika and the two girls were sent by a rickety airship to the war-torn frontline battlefield located on the desolate border. The frontline battlefields are full of sights that Ika has never seen since he was born. The place is filled with the pungent smell of gunpowder, and the smoke and dust in the air will make the eyes overflow with tears unconsciously. And the soldiers of the kingdom who have committed their lives here are each with a fortitude that makes Ika awe-inspiring. The organization of our army is the same as that of the Bis Empire. Soldiers and magicians are two different troops. If you want to investigate the mimicry magic equipment, you have to communicate with the magician troops. Basically, they are the only ones who can use that kind of weapon. Soldiers believe more in the power of guns. This is what the officer told Ika before setting off. While waiting in the airship to arrive at the battlefield, Ika considered what kind of action he should take. But to be honest, if it was just pure combat, he would be considered good at it, but when it came to detailed planning of investigation missions, he could only take it one step at a time. Ika, who knew nothing about the army or war, didn't know exactly how to act. Thinking about such things made him even more tired. I'm sorry, we don't have a place to entertain guests here, we only have this kind of place for you to stay. You don't have to think of us as guests, now I can be considered a soldier here. Ika didn't mind that the chief could free up a simple shed made of wooden boards for Ika and the two girls to use. Instead, she wanted to thank the chief for being able to temporarily build this kind of accommodation. Originally, Ika thought that after arriving here, he would want other soldiers to sleep together. Two ladies. Officers who have been on the front lines for a long time probably rarely see girls dressed up so fresh and refined here. On the surface, Wei 11 and Hitomi do not look like they are here to fight, but they are girls from another world who accidentally got lost on the front-line battlefield. Probably for the sake of the two of them, Ika was assigned an extremely luxurious shed on the front-line battlefield. They can just follow me. Although the people above told me that you can be allowed to move freely, I still request you on a personal basis. If you are able, please contribute to this war. Of course. This is what Ika answered, sir. In the shed made of wooden planks, Ika put the minimum luggage he had brought with him off his shoulders. Are you really going to fight for them? Hitomi watched Ika's movements and asked softly. Don't you already know the answer? Hitomi stared at Ika closely, as if she wouldn't give up until she heard Ika admit it herself. Of course I won't go. Ika said it was natural to break the contract and be ruthless. He sat down on the horizontal wooden board, and a wave of heat surged up in his weak legs as he relaxed. My enemy is neither the Tiburai kingdom nor the Bizi Empire. There is no reason to risk my life to fight them. It is enough for me to complete what I have to do. Wei 11 pursed her lips as if she wanted to say something. But looking at Hitomi and Ika, they seemed to have the same thoughts, only she was different, so she didn't say anything in the end. Wei 11 thinks that Ika's current thinking is wrong. It is impossible for her favorite brother Ika to watch so many people die because of the war and remain indifferent. Perhaps because I was in the position of guarding from behind, I said that when I see others in trouble, I should lend a hand to help. The people who really stand on the front line at the risk of being injured or even losing their lives at any time are Ika and Hitomi. Does your idealism seem too naive and childish in their eyes? Now that they seem to have a truce for the time being, Let's take advantage of this period to find out clues about the mimicry magic equipment from the magician troops as soon as possible. Aika didn't seem to notice Way 11's inner entanglement, although I don't know what specific information I need to investigate to be useful, but I'll write down everything I can ask for first. The magician army is different from the soldier army. The atmosphere in the army is not that chilling, but the air spreading here is undoubtedly heavier and more depressing than usual. Although they introduced the mimic magic equipment to greatly increase their combat power, the side effects of the mimic magic equipment also brought an invisible psychological shadow to them. Because both the Bizi Empire and the Tiburai Kingdom were stationary during this period, Aika was able to meet with the leader of the magician army through the privileges given to him by his superior. He only knew that the mimicry magic equipment was purchased from an arms supplier, and he did not know much about the information above it. The information that Aika could obtain was only to this extent. Arms suppliers and the kingdom's army are organizations that have basically nothing in common except trade. Every time this thread passes through, there will be a huge gap. The Chamber of Commerce of the smuggling group does not only exist in the Protoss, there are also their organizations in the Kingdom of Tiburai. The headquarters of the workshop should be within the Bizi Empire, and humans account for the vast majority of the entire link. If conditions permit, an instrument can be created to track the data flow emitted by the mimicry magic equipment. Aika has tried to contact Professor Kokina many times after entering the Kingdom of Tiburai, but there has been no response from Professor Kokina. Brother Aika, do you know anything? If you just ask like this, you won't be able to find out anything at all. Even if you can really follow the clues based on this bit of information, you don't know when you will be able to see the shadow of Luoluo in this information. After sorting out the confusing thoughts, the workshop represented by Mishi and Komaka manufactured the mimicry magic costume and sold it to all over the world through various business groups that seemed to have nothing in common. The people who benefited from it included the Nemesis Society. Having said that, it is indeed necessary to find a manufacturing factory somewhere in the Bizi Empire to truly end the disgusting cycle of mimicry magic equipment. In less than a day, Aika gave up the idea of looking for clues in the kingdom's army. Now that Hitomi is not with Aika, she went back first. I'll be watching you over there. Perhaps because Hitomi was still unable to stay in this world for too long in a short period of time, she returned to the spiritual world early. Now only Way 11 can stay with Aika as a family member. She looked at Aika's side face with some worry, because Aika looked a little anxious after running around for a day but still not getting what she wanted. Because we are one step closer to Luoluo, is that why Brother Aika is so anxious? She was a little afraid that this statement would anger Aika. Perhaps Luoluo's name should not be mentioned in front of Aika now, but Way 11 believes that this is what Aika's family must tell him clearly. Aika looked at Way 11 with somewhat tired eyes, and opened her mouth slightly as if she really wanted to say something to Way 11. But after all, he could not direct his futile anger towards Way 11. Can you pretend you didn't see me like this and leave me alone for a while? Aika begged Way 11 as if she didn't even have the energy to argue, which made Way 11 frown. Can't. Way 11 was very insistent today. She had never been so disobedient as she was today. But Aika didn't have any thoughts of blaming her, because his brain was not so confused that he couldn't tell who was right and who was wrong. Way 11 suddenly opened her arms and hugged Aika, which caught Aika off guard. I also really hope that Luoluo can come back. Luoluo is the sister of Brother Aika, and she is also my sister, but blindly pursuing the shortest shortcut is not enough. All efforts exist to achieve the goal. There will definitely be more detours in this process. If Brother Aika is very tired, I am by your side, and Hitomi is by your side. There are so many people around you who are waiting for Luoluo comes back. Sister Ling can become Brother Aika's support when Luoluo is away, then I can also have such qualifications, right? Way 11, do you already know? Even I can see it? She stroked Aika's hair like a sister, smoothing away his anxiety. We are all Brother Aika's family, Just like Sister Ling, me, and Hitomi, we can no longer live without Brother Ika, so Lolo will definitely not be able to leave Brother Ika. We will definitely take Lolo home, not in a long, long time. It's the moment that will come soon, so, until then, as long as Brother Ika remembers his current mood, but he can't regret the useless work he is doing now. Until then, just have this feeling of not regretting. If you feel like it, go and hold Lulu's hand. Every time, Ika took the initiative to stroke Wei 11's head. This was the first time she snuggled into Wei 11's warm chest like this. His small chest was filled with love, which gradually diluted his anxiety. Listening to Wei 11's sweet tones that sounded like she was dreaming, her consciousness gradually melted into pure white that blended with the snow-colored goblin. Suddenly, the siren blared. The time has come, Brother Ika. Wei 11 let go of Ika. The person who is reluctant to leave may not be Ika, but Wei 11 who is looking at him with moist eyes. The BZ Empire invested extremely large-scale magical machinery into this battlefield, which was a nightmare that no war weapon could compare to so far. The situation on the battlefield not far away has turned to one side. Even with the crazy use of the ability of the mimicry magic equipment, the kingdom's army was still close to being annihilated. Ika, who arrived later, also recognized the Iron Demon standing in the center of the battlefield from the image projected on the screen. I'll be there. Ika has a mysterious hatred for the Iron Demon. Whether it's to find Lolo or to save the kingdom's army, Ika has a reason to go to the battlefield. Wei 11 behind him smiled. The anxious Ika not long ago was a little different from the Brother Ika she liked. At this time, he was the Brother Ika who always supported her heart. We will use an airship to send you to the sky above the scene. The ground troops will buy you time to get close to the machine. You are the hope of the Tiburai kingdom. That's what the commander said. Although he didn't know that Ika didn't care whether he became the so-called hope of the Tiburai kingdom, the shouts of the resolute warriors still made the boy's blood surge in his body. Board the airship, close the hatch, and the airship speeds away at full power. In a short time, they will arrive at the center of the battlefield where the steel demon is raging. Brother Ika, do you want to rest for a while? Wei 11, who was sitting in the back seat, opened her hands to Ika. It was a continuation of the moment that had just been interrupted by the sudden sound of the siren, like a dream. Please. There was no one here to disturb the two of them, and the airship pilot was tense as he was wary of possible ambush around him. Ika sat down next to Wei 11. With his head resting on his warm, soft legs, his consciousness immediately merged into the pure white. Vaguely, I seemed to hear Wei 11 whispering like she was dreaming. After this war is over, it would be great if we could become partners. Ika didn't even know whether the sentence was Wei 11's wish to spill the beans or her own auditory hallucination. As her consciousness merged into pure white, she gradually became unable to hear Wei 11's next words. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 418. When she woke up, the morning light filtered through the gaps in the drawn curtains. Luluo moved his body slightly. The thin blanket covering the two of them was the only cover for their skin, and the cool air could be vaguely felt in the early summer morning. She seemed a little lost and opened her eyes slightly, as if she had had a long-distant dream, and her consciousness was still lingering in that dream. It often happens that dreams I have had cannot be recalled. There was just a sense of loss that was about to disappear, which persisted even after I woke up. The person next to him was still asleep and did not show any signs of waking up because of Luluo's getting up. It took a while for my brain, which had just woken up from sleep, to realize why I was not wearing pajamas as usual. Because I suddenly wanted to sleep with my brother last night, I ended up like this before I knew it. My brother, who would never get up early if he didn't come to the bedside to urge him every morning, is now sleeping next to him. I wonder if he is there in his dream. Luluo likes to wake up earlier than her brother, staying by the bed and watching him sleeping beside her. This quiet time seemed to have a strange magic that attracted Luoluo. But today was a little different from usual, and Luoluo felt a small impulse in his heart. Perhaps it was because of the sense of loss she felt a few minutes ago, or perhaps because she recalled what happened last night, that made her want to do this very much now. Luoluo quietly reached out her hand, caressed her brother's sleeping cheek, and smoothed away the short black hair that hung down to cover his forehead. Then she took up the messy sky blue hair that she hadn't had time to take care of, turned her head sideways, and kissed her brother on the lips like a dragonfly. My brother took the initiative to do this last night, so I can do it now even without his consent, just as a small revenge for being bullied by him last night. But even Luoluo himself didn't know whether this was considered revenge or a reward for waking up earlier than his brother. The initial feeling of loss was quickly replaced by the happiness that spread in my heart. Luoluo recalled the mischievous kiss she tasted first in the new day. She got out of bed with joy and left the room where their love was nurtured, and began to prepare breakfast for the two of them today. The suburban forest, which is a long way away from the city, is the love nest where Luoluo and his brother live together. Because this is a deep forest in the suburbs with no ownership, the area is quite wide. Whether it's the coniferous forest surrounding it or the huge lake that seems to be only a few dozen meters away and sparkles with dreamy waves on a sunny day, it's a world that belongs to two people. The nearest town here is also 8 kilometers away. Sometimes it is inconvenient when you need to go to the town to buy things. But living with her brother in such a beautiful place like a paradise, Luoluo didn't feel any loneliness. Moreover, all the beautiful things here belong to two people. As long as you think this way, you have already fallen in love with this place. I made an appointment with my brother last night, and today is a long-lost date. Thinking of this, the movements in Luoluo's hands became brisk. Since the relationship between brother and sister in the past has become the relationship between lovers, although there has been no further progress between the two except sleeping in the same bed, Luoluo is already very satisfied. Of course, you have to ask if you are a little bit unwilling and anxious about the stagnant relationship, maybe a little bit. Because my brother really cherishes himself too much. If it wasn't for my own initiative, it might really only go as far as stopping like last night. Therefore, in order to take the initiative to fight for the opportunity, Luoluo would propose today's date afterwards. If you seize today's opportunity, you may be able to cross that line and realize the wish you have held for decades. Shall I help you? Hearing Luoluo's last-minute request for refills until the morning, Aika put down the water glass in her hand in surprise. After all, until now, Luoluo had never asked Aika to do her dressing up when getting ready to go out. On every date before, my brother took the initiative to take me out. But if I take the initiative this time, it should feel a little fresh if the roles are reversed. Role reversal, I can understand that the leadership is given to you, but if you just change clothes, it won't be useful even if I'm by your side, right? Luoluo is beautiful no matter what she wears, that's how it is in my eyes. Don't say such things casually. It doesn't sound like you really think so at all, it's just a casual talk. Today's Luoluo looked surprisingly tough, pulling Aika, who was looking for excuses, into his room. It's a rare opportunity like this. If my brother tries to do it himself, he will know how much energy I usually spend on it. After all that, it turns out that this is your purpose. Aika smiled bitterly and stayed in the center of Luoluo's room. It seemed that he was not ready to refuse Luoluo's request anymore. Luoluo began to take off her pajamas from her shoulders and spread them neatly on the bed. Now she is just wearing cute lingerie. Probably because he had taken a shower before waking himself up, the underwear Luoluo was wearing now was no longer the one Aika had taken off last night. Luoluo raised his arms habitually, as if he wanted to block the area where Aika's side fell. But in the end she put down her hand, because this gesture was not the first time Aika had seen it, and only Aika was allowed to see such a gesture. Since the day their relationship changed, the two have been candid about each other numerous times. Aika did not reject Luoluo's request this time for the same reason. Now Luoluo is both his sister and his lover. They've done things that are even more embarrassing than simply seeing them dressed up in lingerie. Then I'll open the closet. Normally Aika never has the chance to open Luoluo's wardrobe. Although the two are living together now, the distance between them is just right. Perhaps because Aika and Luoluo were originally brother and sister, they could tell what each other was thinking at a glance, so this balance was not destroyed after they became lovers. Aika browsed through the neatly hung girls' clothes in the closet, and then took out a piece of clothing that seemed suitable for the season. This. Ah, brother, if you want to choose clothes, you should at least take out two pieces at the same time for comparison. Oh, that's it? Aika usually just took whatever clothes were on hand and put them on. He never thought about comparing them. Although it was said that Aika came to help from Lalala, he basically still relied on her instructions. Then Aika chose another piece, came to Luoluo, held up the two clothes and briefly compared them in front of her. Why do I feel like I can do both? Please brother, please be more serious. After comparing again, Aika came to the same conclusion. I really don't think the difference is big. The two pieces that brother is holding are both coats. They are not just clothes worn on the upper body. Brother has never considered other ways to match them, right? Luoluo shook his finger and walked past Aika. In front of the wardrobe, in addition to the tops that determine part of the style, the overall matching is also very important. The first thing others will notice is definitely the overall matching, not just a single piece of clothing. I think it is necessary for my brother to learn something in the future knowledge about dressing up. Having that kind of knowledge is not of much use to me. As long as I think you look good in your clothes, that's fine. Anyone with normal aesthetics must think so. That's not enough. I want my brother to know that I prepare hard every time. If I just think it looks good. Under Luoluo's guidance, Aika unwillingly memorized the various types of clothing displayed in the wardrobe, and even browsed through the drawers containing underwear. It feels very summery like this. Speaking of which, Luoluo, do you have any plans for where you are going today? Of course it's been planned. I don't want to be like my brother who decides where to go based on his mood even though it's a date. Obviously I was only thinking about places you might like, okay. Why did it just follow my mood? Today, I want to go somewhere a little further. The neighboring town seems to have added a lot of interesting places recently, and I want to go there with my brother to take a look. It's a neighboring town. If you fly there, it probably won't take long. The temperature shouldn't be too high today, so I'll help you choose an outfit that feels different from usual. Aika took out the pink jumper from the closet that she had noticed when Luoluo introduced it. The size seems a bit too big. I don't know why Luoluo bought it in this size. It will be a little loose when worn on the body, right? As for skirts and pants. After worrying for a while, Aika chose a skirt. Although a pullover would look good paired with shorts, Luoluo still felt more suitable for him with a lotus leaf skirt that bloomed like a flower. Come here, young lady. You must be ready for me to put on your clothes. Luoluo nodded and stretched out his hands to Aika. Help me put it on. The clothes Aika chose were not very complicated in design, but the buckle hidden deep in the ruffles on the side of the ruffle skirt made Aika look for it for a while. The last thing is the socks. Aika puts the rolled up black silk knee-high socks on Lolo's feet, and then follows the graceful arc of the ankle and calf to pull the silky knee-high socks to the middle of the thigh. The black stockings with moderate elasticity are knee socks show off the graceful curves of Lolo's legs. After they were all dressed, Aika took Luoluo's hand and pulled her up from the bed, taking her to the floor-length mirror next to the dressing table. This is the first time I don't put on clothes by myself. Looking at herself in the floor-length mirror, who was completely different from her previous image, Luoluo nervously grabbed the corners of her slightly baggy pullover. I haven't worn this set of clothes since I bought them. Isn't this kind of dress a bit frivolous? I think it's cute. Now it really makes me feel like you are my sister and lover. It's great. Aika stroked Luoluo's bangs. Knowing what he was going to do, Luoluo hurriedly closed her eyes, and then Aika kissed her forehead gently. Then he touched Luoluo's head, and suddenly seemed to remember something, and walked back to the closet. He took out a soft school hat and put it on the head of Lolo, whose cheeks were still flushed. Yeah, perfect. Aika looked at his masterpiece with satisfaction and nodded with satisfaction from the bottom of his heart. After walking out of the house, in the middle of the lake not far away, a fish whose length was estimated to be about the same as Aika's height jumped out of the water. Bobo appears again. Luoluo, did you see clearly this time? I still can't see clearly. Actually, I've been thinking, Bobo is not an ordinary fish, right? Why do you think so? Except for him jumping out of the water every time we go out, I've never seen his shadow. And it's so far away that I can't even see what he looks like. It turns out you always walk around that lake looking for Bobo. That was a walk? But it would be great if we could find Bobo. By the way, don't you care whether Bobo is a fish or a magical beast? If it is an intelligent monster, maybe it will be a little fun to go to that lake in the future. As long as it makes a big noise in the lake, it will come out. Don't disturb others on purpose. Bobo has long since sunk into the water, and even the ripples on the lake have disappeared. Are you ready? Luoluo nodded slightly and took a step closer to Aika. Aika used her strong arms to support Luoluo's shoulders and legs, and picked her up from where she was, while Luoluo gently hugged Aika's neck with his hands. I haven't done this in a while. Well, brother. Luoluo's eyes drifted to the lake in the distance. I shouldn't have gained weight. Do you see how heavy I feel now? Silver-white mechanical wings unfolded behind Aika. Aika flew high into the sky with Luoluo in her arms, heading towards the destination of their date today.